Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to our UMY MOOCs with me, Miss Eko Purwanti. And the topic of today's discussion is about the discussion of teacher professional development focusing on lesson study. So today, as I told you, we are going to talk about lesson study as a collaborative type of teacher professional learning. Dear students, if you remember, we have already discussed about the type of teacher professional learning. Of 5 choices of teacher professional learning, lesson study is included in community of practice. This section will open up with a discussion on the origin of lesson study, what theories underpin lesson study, and what key features underline its practice as well as its procedures. Therefore, after this meeting, you are all supposed to understand the origin of lesson study, to understand the theories underpinning lesson study, to understand the features underlining lesson study, and to understand the procedures of lesson study. Well, dear students, are you ready? Yes. Now, let's start with the first discussion. Before I discuss the origin of lesson study, I'm going to quote a statement from Stigler and Hebert. They said that if you want to improve teaching, the most effective way to do so is in the context of classroom lessons. As you may be aware, lesson study is a type of teacher professional learning which is based on the classroom activities. This is regarded as the most suitable professional learning activities for teacher. Now, let's look into its origin more deeply. Where is lesson study originated from? Lesson study is originated in Japan. The word lesson study is directly translated from Japanese words jugyo, which means instructions, lessons, and kenkyu, which means research or study. So lesson study is a type of Japanese teacher professional development which is designed to improve instruction and to build and share knowledge of teaching and learning. And the practice of lesson study usually involves a group of teachers from 3 up to 8 who collaboratively plan, teach, observe, and reflect a lesson in an actual and live classroom called research lessons. In research lessons, a teacher delivers a lesson while peer teachers observe the students' learning. In this context, the teacher is regarded as the model teacher. And when the lesson is over, a reflection of the teaching and learning activities is conducted by the member of the lesson study group, in which the model teacher and all the observers in the research lessons are involved. The practice of lesson study in Japan has been started since over 100 years ago. If you see this picture in this slide, you are seeing the implementation of lesson study in a Japanese school. And what about the philosophical principle of lesson study? Let's talk about this. There are 2 philosophical principles of lesson study. First, principle 1. Everyone has the right to learn. And 2, principle number 2, everyone deserves to be constantly improved. What are the implications of these 2 philosophical principles of lesson study? Dear students, the first principle suggests that every child has the right to have education, regardless of their intellectual capacity and their welfare. It means that students from poor family or students with weaknesses in intelligence are still entitled to have the right of education. And the second idea of the philosophical principles affect the teaching methodology in which teaching should improve. And there is a push to start from a real or concrete objects. And the principles of everyone has the right to learn, therefore, implies that a teacher learn in order to teach better, and students have the right to learn. On the other hand, the second principles of the philosophical principles of lesson study implies that every teaching and learning process should be developed in order to improve teaching practices in the future. Such philosophy presents two key understandings. First, there is no perfect teaching and learning process, and second, every teacher has his or her own strengths and weaknesses, and therefore, every teacher has to improve all the time. What about the next discussion related to the key features of lesson study? Now we are going to discuss about it. According to Murata in 2011, there are 5 key features of lesson study, which include: first, lesson study is centered on teachers' interest. Second, lesson study is student-focused and about students' learning. Third, lesson study has a research lesson or open lesson. Fourth, lesson study is a reflective process. And fifth, lesson study is collaborative. As I told you before, lesson study has been implemented by Japanese teachers in Japanese classrooms since 100 years ago. What about in Indonesia? Lesson study in Indonesia was introduced in 1998 during the launch of the IMSTEC, or Indonesian Mathematics and Science Teacher Education Project. IMSTEC was conducted by 3 teacher education institutions located in Bandung, Yogyakarta, and Malang in collaboration with Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA. The IMSTEC project, and in particular lesson study, was regarded successful in improving mathematics and science education, and the impact of lesson study soon found its way to many Indonesian school curriculum reforms projects. And now, lesson study has been implemented in many schools in Indonesia. If you see the picture in this slide, this is the example of lesson study implementation in one of junior high school in West Java. And you can see that a teacher gathered together in a class, observing a model teacher have their teaching practices. And in doing this lesson study implementation, the following step should be fulfilled. So let's talk about the procedures of lesson study in Indonesia. What are the procedures of lesson study in Indonesia? The procedures of lesson study in Indonesia are less complicated and simple compared to the ones in other countries. As you can see, there are 3 steps of lesson study in Indonesia, namely plan, do, and see. The simplification of lesson study steps is meant to help teachers easily familiar with lesson study and to implement it in daily teaching. As you can see, the first thing that the teacher do is the plan. And in the stage of plan, the teachers design the lesson plans and research lesson. And after that, the group of the lesson study members will check the lesson plan and see if the lesson plan is okay. And after the lesson plan is confirmed, the next step is do, in which one of the model teacher practice the teaching and the other teachers observe the teaching and learning process. And during these activities, the observers take notes on what is going on related to the students' learning. And in the last steps, or in the last procedures of lesson study, it is called as C. In this step or in this stage, the teachers evaluate and reflect the lesson. These activities, these procedures is called as lesson study cycle. And all of these activities are conducted collaboratively. And therefore, lesson study is regarded as collaborative type of teacher professional learning. Well, dear students, what do you think of lesson study? I hope you understand about what I have already explained about lesson study. And more specifically, I hope that after we finish this meeting, you have already understood about the origin of lesson study, understood about theories underpinning lesson study, understood about the key features underlining lesson study, and understood about the procedures of lesson study, specifically the ones implemented in Indonesian classroom. Well, this is the end of our meeting today. Thank you for all of your attention. I wish you luck and see you in the next topic. And let's conclude this meeting by saying hamdalah, alhamdulillah, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.